Hi there. Hi guys. I want to talk about the idea of coming to a realization of God as ultimately an obligation, not only to assert to metaphysical propositions, but actually to purge yourself of all negativity. The actual ending of negative emotions is the idea that I'm getting at here. And it's not something that can be denied as being a kind of gift from the outside, but ultimately must be held responsible as well from within, in the sense of realizing that all negative emotions, are in fact a misunderstanding. They result because of a misunderstanding of the truth. Because if you knew what was going on, you wouldn't be upset in a really negative way. You would not have neuroses. You would not have depression. You would not be bipolar. You know, what is going on in society that we have basically an outbreak of bipolar disorder? Every other person you meet seems like they're bipolar. This is not normal. Either there's a crisis on our hands of a major mental proportion, or we're just mischaracterizing something that's endemic and natural to our modern world. You know, both are true, actually. But what does it mean that everyone is depressed all the time? You know, they used to call it melancholia, so some people would want to claim that, in fact, all throughout history, there has been probably the same rates, if not more, depression, but we're just only analyzing it now. No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that that actually works. I think there's something about contemporary existence and the way it makes people confront their own egos constantly through media, through photography, through just managing your own brand. The people now are their own brands. This pressure on the human conscious system is overwhelming, and it will amplify the ego's natural tendency to want to destroy you and want to punish you in terrible, terrible ways. Um, the only way out is not through pills of depression that no one really knows how they totally work, and there's, you know, even questions about the science behind their efficacy in the first place, which there are. Um, no, it's not about external pharmacological intervention, at least not mainly or not totally. No, what it's about is transformation. What it's about is transforming your mind such that you just no longer value the things you used to value, and you no longer allow the old system that used to just generate what you thought the world was and how you were supposed to relate to it and how you were supposed to relate to your own sense of your own presentation to the world as someone to be honored and analyzed and evaluated, and, you know, pay attention to me is what the ego wanted to say most of the time. And all that needs to go away for a radical identification in the self, within a new ego, which identifies with the purity of the experience itself. You know, I'm not just seeing a red thing when I look at my sweatshirt. I am redness at that moment. And I am the aesthetic evaluator of redness. You totally make aesthetic the entire plenum of your consciousness. The entire existence of it becomes a kind of art piece that you relate to. And once you do this, you start to realize that bad emotions are really bad art. They're ugly art. They're art that you don't want to spend much time looking at, figuratively. I mean, in some ways, the best way to look at negative emotions is by totally externalizing it in art. And you have a Francis Bacon painting or something, um, or a good horror film, you know. But when those negative emotions live in you, ultimately it's because of this neurotic ego story you have going, in which you're not able to just detach yourself from the situation and see it totally in aesthetic terms, which is the solution. But that's a threat, and you're worried that if you lose those values that your ego has constructed, I mean, how can you participate in the world in the same way? How can you? You can't. You just can't. That kind of participation with those kind of values will make you depressed, will make you bipolar, will make you neurotic. Immediately, next time you find yourself having a negative emotion, and by negative emotion I mean a disruptive, unhealthy emotion, like anger, irrational anger, especially depression of a flattening sort, not sadness. Sadness is good, usually. If you can actually ride the wave of sadness, it's not a depressing emotion at all. It's a flip side of love. You know, grief is, you know, when experienced fully, for example, if someone close to you dies, is a kind of ecstatic experience. It's horrible because of what you understand it to be, but the experience of it is just it's a released valve of love and crying and tears. I mean, that is what you're after, actually. You know, what's dangerous about depression is not these flashes of intense emotion and tears and crying. No, depression is about a flattening of experience itself, where reality starts to become drained of meaning because you become drained of meaning. Because you're still evaluating it from the wrong perspective. I mean, I've been through this stuff. You know, I know what that kind of negativity means. And the only way out, I mean, the only way out, it's not about some simple little negotiation that you can have with a therapist in which you get your life on track, or not even something you watch on Oprah. I mean, I think it really demands that you relate to your own consciousness forever in a new way. In a new way. I mean, you realize that all those values you used to have were illusions. I mean, they really didn't exist for any real reason. They existed for their neurotic reasons. But what's real is the aesthetics of reality. What's real is your aesthetic input, and the evaluation of it is in a sense the natural output. But unless you really start to then decide that everything you're going to experience is aesthetically rich and valuable, eventually you will become depressed and bipolar. But if you can choose to go the other direction and allow yourself to experience the full aesthetic reality of your existence, you know, the actual, on every level, visual, audio, the conceptual structure of your experience, the story that's being told through your experience, unique to you. I mean, suddenly life becomes this grand movie that you're just both in and watching. And that's the way to break out of all the anxiety and the depression and the pain. That's one part of it. I mean, I think that's the main part of it, because I think once you do that, nothing really, everything that even is in your own consciousness from your past or whatever can be seen in an aesthetic way, because you really just changed your mind. And this is a long process, and there are other aspects to it. Obviously, what we're going to be talking a lot about, a lot of the aspects that are required for you to transform your being. But this is the step one. And again, I think the concept of God here is the way in, because ultimately God is the source of the beauty. So in some sense, all appreciation of beauty is in some sense something to be thankful for to God for, because the beauty is in your consciousness as much as it is something outside your consciousness that you're observing. It is your consciousness, the appreciation of the beauty. There's no appreciation of the beauty in exactly that way outside your consciousness. And so all appreciation of beauty can be transferred to love of God. Obviously, this relates to other issues regarding things like non-attachment in the Buddhist tradition, and I'm going to be talking about that. But just the way I like to look at it is negative emotions will cease once you realize that they're really bad art, and that all reality is an aesthetic appreciation of itself, in a sense, and eliminate the bad art from your experience. And you'll start to feel better, and you'll start to realize that nothing can get at you anymore. And that's even a threat. But you become immune to bad emotions because it's all too beautiful. God bless, guys.